Welcome back, everyone. Okay, let's dive into this. Today, we're unpacking a real classic, right? One of the most foundational wealth building philosophies ever put to paper, Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We're going to completely bypass all the noise here and just clearly map out the actual mindset shifts and the literal cash flow principles that separate the wealthy from, well, pretty much everyone else. So, why do smart, highly educated people often struggle with money? It's a really provocative question, isn't it? I mean, we're all conditioned by society to believe that academic excellence essentially guarantees financial success. You know the drill. Get good grades, land a secure job, and boom, you're set for life. But if that were actually true, why do so many doctors, accountants, and top executives find themselves absolutely drowning in debt, just living paycheck to paycheck? That paradox right there, that is the exact heart of our story today. Section 1. A Tale of Two Dads. So Robert Kiyosaki grew up with two highly influential father figures, and they offered radically contrasting points of view. His biological father, who he actually calls his poor dad, was brilliantly educated. We're talking a 4-year undergrad degree finished in less than 2 years, Stanford, a PhD, and a highly respected career in education. Yet, he struggled financially his entire life and actually left behind bills to be paid when he passed. Contrast that with his best friend Mike's father, the rich dad. This guy never even finished the 8th grade, yet he built an absolute empire and became one of the wealthiest men in Hawaii. Now, both men were strong, charismatic, and they both worked incredibly hard their whole lives. But man, their financial outcomes literally couldn't have been more different. And you know, this massive difference in outcomes, it wasn't about the size of their paychecks at all. It was deeply rooted in their fundamental beliefs. The poor dad firmly believed the love of money is the root of all evil. He essentially saw wealthy ambition as a negative trait. The rich dad, on the other hand, flipped that entirely. He said the lack of money is the root of all evil. To him, financial struggle was the true source of hardship and stress in life. We really see this mindset difference most sharply in how they handled roadblocks. When faced with something expensive, the poor dad would just state, "I can't afford it." Boom, it's a statement, and it's final. The rich dad, though, he absolutely forbade those words. Instead, he insisted on asking a question. How can I afford it? Because think about it. When you say I can't afford it, your brain just shuts down. It essentially goes to sleep out of sheer mental laziness. But when you ask, how can I afford it? Your brain is suddenly put to work. It's forced to exercise, to seek out solutions, and to actually grow stronger. Just like proper physical exercise increases your health, proper mental exercise increases your wealth. All right, Section 2, the rat race trap. To truly understand how money works, young Robert actually went to work for his rich dad in a convenience store. The pay? A measly 10 cents an hour. And Robert hated it. The pay was terrible, and honestly, he just wanted to quit. But his rich dad explained that this exact frustration is what most adults feel their entire lives. Think about the cycle. You wake up, go to work, pay bills, and repeat. This is the exhausting, endless loop that Rich Dad calls the rat race. It's a vicious cycle that traps the poor and the middle class, just keeping them perpetually running on a wheel without ever actually getting anywhere. So what exactly keeps people stuck in that loop? Well, Rich Dad explained that people's lives are forever controlled by two incredibly powerful emotions, fear and greed. First off, it's the fear of not having money that motivates us to work hard in the first place, right? We're absolutely terrified of not being able to pay the bills, so we go get the paycheck. But then the second emotion kicks in, greed or desire. The moment we get paid, we start thinking about all the wonderful things that money can buy us. So we spend it all, the fear returns, and boom, we are forced right back to work. Rich Dad illustrated this perfectly with a really brilliant analogy. He said the illusion of money is like a donkey dragging a cart, blindly chasing a dangling carrot. Now, the donkey's owner might be getting exactly where he wants to go, but the poor donkey is just chasing a total illusion. And tomorrow, there's just going to be another carrot. People chase pay raises and secure jobs strictly because of that fear and desire, never stepping back to see the whole picture of who is really holding the stick. Which brings us to Section 3, Making Money Work. Once the boys understood this trap, Rich Dad did something crazy. He took away their 10 cents an hour entirely and told them to work for free. And honestly, this led to what we can call the comic book epiphany. Because they finally stopped reacting with that emotion of needing a paycheck, their minds suddenly opened up to actual opportunity.
While working in the store for free, they noticed the store manager throwing away old comic books. The distributor only needed the top half of the cover back for credit, so the boys struck a clever deal to keep the rest. They took these discarded comics, opened up a makeshift library in Mike's basement, and charged the neighborhood kids 10 cents for 2 hours of unlimited reading. They even hired Mike's studious younger sister to be the actual librarian.
And the result? Their little comic book library generated $9.50 a week in pure profit. Now, for a kid in 1956, that was a literal fortune. But the real breakthrough wasn't the dollar amount. It was the fact that they were making this money even when they weren't physically standing down there in the basement. They had successfully built a system. They learned the absolute ultimate lesson. The poor and middle class work for money. But the rich, they have money work for them. Let's move to and see how this builds. Section 4, assets versus liabilities. Once you've got the mindset down, you really need the mechanics. The absolute core of financial literacy comes down to this. It's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep. Trying to build wealth on a weak financial foundation is kind of like trying to build a skyscraper on a 6-inch concrete slab. Eventually, it's just going to topple over into a leaning tower of financial ruin. And frankly, this lack of a strong foundation is exactly why you see lottery winners or high-earning professional athletes making millions of dollars only to wind up completely broke just a few years later. So to build that deep, solid foundation, Rich Dad stripped accounting down to its absolute barest bones for these two young boys. And here is the singular defining rule of wealth. An asset puts money in your pocket, a liability takes money out of your pocket. That's literally it. Now, it might frustrate traditional accountants because it's so ridiculously simple, but it provides a perfect, flawless directional compass for building true wealth. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the actual visual flow of the money. If you look on the bottom left, you have an asset in the balance sheet. Notice how the arrow flows directly upward, right into the income column. Assets generate cash flow. So whether it's a comic book library, real estate, or dividend-paying stocks, the arrow points up and out, actively putting money into your pocket without requiring your daily physical labor. But now, look at the cash flow pattern of a liability. It starts down there on the bottom right, and it pulls money directly up and out through the expense column. A liability does nothing but drain your resources. It requires maintenance, monthly payments, taxes, upkeep. It literally just takes money away from you. So the absolutely crucial point here is this. The wealthy spend their entire lives acquiring actual assets. The poor and middle class, however, acquire liabilities that they falsely think are assets. A really classic example of this is a highly expensive personal home or a luxury car. The middle class often calls these things their greatest assets. But if you look back at that cash flow diagram we just saw, those items are pulling money out of their pockets every single month in the form of mortgages, taxes, insurance, and maintenance. The cash flow proves, without a doubt, that they are liabilities. Which brings us to a really provocative question I want to leave you with today. Are you spending your life buying assets, or are you buying liabilities that you just think are assets? True wealth isn't about the size of your paycheck. It's about looking closely at your own daily financial choices and ensuring that your money is buying systems and investments that actually work for you, so you don't have to spend your entire life running in the rat race. Thank you so much for diving into this explainer with me. Keep exercising that brain of yours, and I'll see you next time.